thinking about some parts of my book, Poisoned by Pollution: An Unexpected Spiritual Journey, in which I wrote about how my illness changed some of my values and priorities. I'd like to share a small example which might help illuminate a facet of that shift, as well as one of the reasons why I decided to live part-time in Paris. When I arrive in Paris to resume life there, I almost feel as if I have a case of whiplash, especially as I start to make plans to see friends again. In Seattle, to invite guests over for dinner, I need to start the scheduling process months ahead. First, I'll call Family A to find out which dates they might be able to come, then Family B and C, and so forth. But Family C may not be able to give me any possible dates for 3 weeks, and by the time that they do, Family A is no longer available on the dates that we discussed. So I have to start the mad scheduling process all over again. Therefore, inviting guests to dinner in Seattle can wind up feeling as though I'm planning a summit meeting for heads of state. In comparison, I recently wanted to host a small dinner here in Paris for friends who had just gotten married. So I began calling friends to see which dates might work for them. I wanted to choke with laughter when they all immediately suggested a primetime slot of a Saturday night, which was only 3 days away, speaking with so much pleasure at the idea of a dinner. I find that people in Paris tend to be more available and generally take more delight in relationships. I've noticed that we Seattleites often seem conflicted when we're invited to social events with friends, and I suppose it's understandable. It's often, I think, because while part of us wants to go to the dinner or event, another part of us feels stressed and overwhelmed at the thought because we already can't keep up with our existing schedules and long lists of things to do. I believe that part of this cultural difference may be partially explained by the way that we Americans tend to make our achievements our priority in virtually every area of our lives, whether those achievement efforts are getting our bodies into athletic shape, embarking on self-improvement projects, fixing up our homes, or pursuing personal and spiritual growth as an achievement, sometimes even as a competition to prove who is the most spiritually enlightened. This hard-driving achievement fever seems to be part of our cultural genes. Earlier this year, I made a video called "A Dessert a Day Keeps the Doctor Away" about how finding ways to savor and enjoy life has been a part of my healing. The only people who wrote me enthusiastically about the video happened to be Europeans, which, to be honest, didn't surprise me. The idea that life can be a pleasure tends to be such a foreign concept to Americans. If I had framed the video as a self-improvement work project, my guess is that it would have garnered a more enthusiastic reception. It's not that my Parisian friends don't have commitments and stressful lives, and they certainly have ambition, but they're generally much more committed to maintaining a balance in their lives between being and doing. My Parisian friends achieve at work, but they don't let it consume every area of their lives. They also tend to make non-achievement things a priority, such as family, relationships, and enjoying life. To illustrate how this relentless American tendency toward achievement has been part of our culture for a long time, I want to tell you a little story. When I was growing up in Egypt, my family entertained visitors from all over the world. What set the American visitors apart, however, was that they tried to achieve a lot, even on vacation, by packing as much sightseeing into their days as was humanly possible. Many of them would announce to us, "We have 30 minutes to do the Cairo Museum," while glancing at their watches. Then we get down to the Cairo Museum, a vast building where 30 minutes will barely get you through the front hall, only to find that ticket sales had ground to a screeching halt while the ticket seller was down on his prayer rug, his body rising and falling in prayer. This happened so often that my mother finally got an Egyptologist at the museum to talk to American wives about which exhibits they should show their American visitors who had only budgeted 30 minutes for the Cairo Museum. I was reminded of this experience the other day when a tour guide here in Paris told me that she no longer puts American tourists together with visitors from other countries. Because, she said, unlike other foreigners, her American tourists tend to expect a jam-packed schedule of sightseeing, and they want to multitask, for example, grabbing a cup of coffee to go instead of sitting and drinking it in a cafe. She said that while other foreigners might see drinking coffee in a cafe as a way to experience the local culture, her American tourists tend to see it as a waste of time. According to her, they're often more concerned with crossing Parisian attractions off of their accomplishment lists so that they can say that they've been there. Actually, this tendency toward cramming as much as possible into our days seems to have long been part of American culture, even before my childhood years in Egypt. As long ago as the 1800s, foreign visitors to the U.S. remarked about how fascinated they were to observe the way that Americans seem to be forever rushing around. Of course, there can be factors beyond our control which can lead toward hectic and scattered lives, like demanding jobs and raising children. But if they were the only reasons, then many American children wouldn't have just as jam-packed schedules and be as unavailable as adults. Even when some Americans retire, they can be just as busy as when they worked. Since my illness and living in Paris, I've given much thought to the powerful American beliefs that more achievement leads to more happiness, and that the more you do, the more you'll get out of life. I have concluded that actually too much achievement can erode my capacity for happiness and lead me to getting less out of life. It can leave me feeling as if I'm driving along a gorgeous scenic road of life at 90 miles an hour, racing so much that I can't take in the beauty of the journey, much less enjoy it. I'm certainly not against achievement because in moderation it can lead to wonderful things. I believe, however, that what we Americans tend to lack is balance. And the good news is that we have considerable control over that if we want. How would you like to learn more about what my illness has taught me? You'll find it in my book, Poisoned by Pollution, An Unexpected Spiritual Journey.